a few seconds before we dive into the topic of compliance about the psychology and the spirit of the whole thing. Comply. What is comply? Part of the word is from a French verb from the 14th century, and it means to bend and to fold. The word comply means to acquiesce to somebody's wishes and commands. Yes, it's as scary as that. The reason I wanted to mention it at the beginning is that this is not an optional thing. It's mandatory going forward. Transactions in the financial world, including property transactions, we have to learn how to live with compliance and learn how to work with it in a positive manner. So, what is it? First of all, very briefly about the legal background. There's various directives, EU directives, UK directives about it, and many legislative pieces work in unison to achieve the transparency that the political establishment and the business establishment wants. One of that is automatic exchange of information. I am sure everybody knows what that is by now. The other one for our dear Russian friends and colleagues is the CFC, KIK. So these things work together to achieve maximum transparency. Now, why are the banks that Natalia mentioned so scared about compliance, and why are they so insistent? Because their regulatory bodies don't just give them requirements, they carry a big stick. Western Union in the US was fined $60 million for weak AML procedures. Let's come back to home. Hellenic Bank, €2 million fine, I think a year and a half ago, for weak compliance. Federal Bank of the Middle East, another sad story. Why? The US sanctioned AML issues, and the result is unfortunately a bank in complete distress together with its depositors. Why are the banks so scared? They're scared to lose their US correspondent account relationships. As you know, all payments in the US dollars go through the United States, go through central banks which do the correspondent servicing. Automatic systems pick up danger signals. They come back to the banks from where it originates and ask lots of questions. So the banks, they want to anticipate the questions. They want to be sure the transactions are clean, forgive me for the term, before they go. Now, that's the risks for the institutions. What about the risks for you, for the investors? If your compliance is not tip-top shape, you may not be able to open accounts, you may not be able to do transactions, your accounts may be frozen. I don't know about my esteemed colleagues in the audience, but in the banking business for 28 years, recently we see, unfortunately, accounts being frozen when the banks are not satisfied about compliance. So it's not just the bank accounts. Also, are you going to be able to buy property in France or Switzerland or in the UK if your compliance is not up to scratch? I would say no. So it needs to be organized in advance. Or buying businesses, private equity, same story. What are the banks scared of more than other? PEPs, politically exposed persons, number one. Unrelated loans. Cyprus banks, at least in particular, look at this with great suspicion. They basically are willing to service only loans between related parties. Negative publicity. I don't think I need to explain what that is. No substance. Recently, banks are asking, excuse me, you have a company, offshore company. Ajay, thank you wherever you are. I have not heard the word offshore in a while, but we all know what that is. That's the basis of, the pillar of financial services, but things have changed. The word offshore no longer is politically correct. So we now talk about substance. A company should have substance, personnel, an actual tangible establishment which looks like a genuine business, not a shelf company. Jurisdiction. Bahamas is on the blacklist of the EU as a non-compliant tax jurisdiction. Just a bit of information. So banks are beginning to look at the jurisdictions that businesses use. Real quick, what do they like? We think Cyprus is great because there's a tax, there's audited accounts, there's transparency, there is compliance, there is regulatory bodies making sure that the business is done in a clean and proper manner. So I think Cyprus going forward, together with Substance, is an excellent jurisdiction. UBOs. Banks request meetings or Skype sessions with their clients. They have to do it by central bank regulations. Why? One of the reasons is they want to make sure that the ultimate beneficial owner is the genuine article. Might sound funny to some people, but hundreds of companies exist where the UBO is not the UBO. It is the driver, the uncle from the village, the chief accountant, and then. Banks don't like that. They will freeze your account if they realize that this is the situation. So these are the danger signals. Now, how do they do their job? Well, first of all, they ask you to present them with the compliance documentation. Am I too loud? Should we? Good? Okay. So they ask you to provide the compliance information, but that's not all. We haven't forgotten about the internet, have we? They know about Spark, they have LexisNexis, they have all the tools at their disposal. We should all be aware of that because they cross-reference the information and everything has to be legit. As soon as the bank sees a discrepancy between the picture you're presenting and the picture he's finding, that's not a good thing. They become upset, suspicious, they're not happy. And we want the bankers to be happy in order for us to do the business properly and quickly. So what to do? Our recommendation, notwithstanding the business we are in or not in, is to prepare. Victory loves preparation, meaning we should prepare for it. It's a part of our life, we should get ready. What is compliance? What is it? It's 4 things. KYC, source of wealth, source of funds, and tax compliance. KYC is the simplest part. It is your identification. Passport, utility bill, your resume, your brief biographical history. Easy. Next, source of wealth. The accent is on source. When we ask our clients, what is your source of wealth? I often get the answer, I have 3 apartments in Moscow, I have a house in Cyprus, I have shares in a company and a bond portfolio. That's your wealth. That's not your source of wealth. When we talk about source of wealth, we, the banks, would like to know how was the money earned in order to buy the assets that now constitute your wealth. Source of funds, again, a bit of a misnomer. I would call it movement of funds, nature of funds. They don't want to just know, you have 5 million in your Cyprus bank account and it came from company ABC. That's not enough. What we need to know is, what is the nature of the funds that have come? Was it capital? Was it loans? Was it services? The actual economic qualification of the money. That source of funds. And last but not least, tax compliance. Checking that a client is tax compliant in his local country is not a legal obligation. It's not part of the directives. However, because we dove into this topic very deep and very thoroughly, because we wanted to make sure that we know exactly how to do it and not to overdo it. There is a tendency sometimes for that. We've received from UK legal advisory firms, including at the level of Queen's Counsel, QCs, that tax compliance in a local country is something that should be paid attention to for a perfect compliance picture. So this is the suggestion. Prepare in advance. Don't wait until you're ready to buy a house in France or a gorgeous apartment on the Limassol seafront 6 months from now, and there is a request from your banker, excuse me, can I please see your compliance profile? And your deal is ready to happen, and you start running around collecting documents. That kind of hassle nobody needs. Prepare in advance. Now, the organizers have asked me to address the following question. Where is it safe to invest and make a profit? There are many answers, of course, to this question. We believe one of the answers could be London. Why? #1 city in investment in commercial real estate in 2017, 30 billion. Beating New York, LA, Berlin, Paris, and actually the rest of the cities in the world since it's number one. Number 2 city in the world by the number of tourists, 19 million tourists in 2016. And number 1 city in the world by tourist spend. Tourists spent $16 billion in London in 2016. These are MasterCard figures. What does that say? It's a magnet for investment and continues to be a magnet for tourists. Now, why do we like tourists? Because we've been managing a portfolio of 100 million sterling at today's valuation for the last 8 years, and we have a certain investment strategy which focuses on properties which have a lot to do with tourism, mainly street retail commercial properties. The portfolio has achieved a 17% per annum over 8 years on an annual basis, including certain periods of spectacular growth of 30%. This was from 2010 to 2016. Just a comment. About the 30%, there's an article in Forbes about that fund, and this is money paid out to investors. This is not based on a valuation, it's not a paper profit, it's a recognized, realized profit. So, again, why London, why tourists? The devil is in the details. Somebody mentioned to me yesterday, oh, but residential has gone down 5%. And that is probably true, if that's what Bloomberg says. But it depends not only where you invest, but how. One thing is a passive investment. You buy a luxury apartment in Mayfair or Knightsbridge, and you sit and you wait until the market takes you up. We don't do that. We do active, I would say, aggressive property management, and we focus on 4 things. 1, we like properties where development potential is present. 2, we like neighborhoods that are up and coming. Not Mayfair and Knightsbridge or something similar, but the Mayfair of, say, 5 years from now. We like places with major government infrastructural investment. Crossrail, if anybody knows. Think King's Cross, think St. Pancras. You got to give it to the Brits. They do it right. They make beautiful infrastructural improvement. Cyprus, where I lived for 28 years. I'm one of the expats, by the way, who adores it. Yeah, we could learn from that. How to do it right from the beginning so that it's beautiful, because beauty attracts, like one of the speakers said. So, a couple of examples of things we do. We don't build gigantic buildings like our colleagues, but we do little stuff which gives a big payback. Small steps, big payback. You add an extra floor in London, something like that, you see the before and after, you substantially increase the income, and thereby you increase the capital value. That's one product. Another one, wow, I still have time, amazing. I must be speaking too fast. Natalia's fault. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, just kidding. Short-term, high fixed income, multi-currency. We lend money to UK businesses at 12% per annum. Sounds high. Real quick, why? Because we do it very fast versus the banks. If you need a loan in 2 to 3 weeks, the banks, forget it, it's not going to happen. So there are bridge finance companies which do this business. So we lend out at 12, we take a property as collateral, we are securitized, we're secure, and then we offer participation to our investors at 5 to 8% per annum. This is a short product, it's less than 12 months. If you like it, you can reinvest in other loans. You basically participate in the income stream from the loan. Just so you guys don't think that we're crazy and we invented this, there's an Ernst & Young study on the bridging market. It's currently at 4.5 billion sterling in the UK. It's a pretty established business. We've been doing it for 8 years, just like the real estate. We've lent out more than 75 million, 240 loans, 0 default rate, because the initial money lent out is ours, so we make sure the deal is as safe as possible. And for the investor, it's a 5 to 8% return. So, people say, but London, I don't know, Brexit. When is the time to invest? When everything is going great? It's too late by then, like Warren Buffett says. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's enjoy the rest of our day together.